Hey there, Patriots. JT Serenity Farms prepping here. So, Intel says that virtually every food recall in the last 18 months has been a sham, a fake. The government is ordering companies to recall food items. Then the Democrat deep state regime are confiscating those items and they're being transported to the underground military bases and cities that these scumbags are preparing for themselves in the event of total collapse. A total collapse which they are intentionally pushing for. So the next time you hear about a food recall, the latest one today was Walmart buttermilk pancake and waffle mix. Said there were potentially plastic pieces parts in them. I would bet you if you had yourself a very fine strainer, like a flour sifter, and you had a box of that pancake waffle mix and you dumped it in there and you sifted it, I'm willing to bet that you're not going to come up with anything except pancake and waffle mix. And to be perfectly honest, over the years, we have all ingested lots of minuscule, microscopic pieces of stuff. Oh, by the way, in the push to make sure that everyone, one way or another, salads are being grown that already contain stuff. And now companies are pushing to have it injected into pork, beef, as they're trying to do away with it to get everyone to do the synthetic crap, poisonous veggie beef. You don't think it won't be in there either? If you're not growing and raising your own food, you're in big trouble. Now, with massive food shortages already on the horizon, we know this is coming because of the last couple years with the illegal and unconstitutional edicts that were put down. Nobody was working, nothing was getting done, supply chain was not being replenished, all by intent. Well, that has not been fixed. If anything, it's being further intentionally made worse. I have a couple stories here I want to read to you about where we're headed. Now, the U.S. is behind many other countries in that we have some larger food supplies, but it's not going to last. Other countries are already implementing draconian food rationing and food rationing debit cards. Let's check it out. All right, so in France, Macron is talking about setting up a food voucher system to help residents afford to eat. Okay, right now it's not really about the price. He's doing it because there's a food shortage, and he understands the riots that will follow. Okay, so that system is going to be tied into Macron's Wuhan jibber jab passport system. Diesel will also soon need to be rationed as countries cut off their imports of Russian supplies due to sanctions and anti-Russian virtue signaling sentiment. Now remember, diesel powers the world. All the trucks, all the planes, all the ships. So this is going to have a intentional, devastating effect on an already crippled supply chain. Okay, now, Ukraine, as we know, is out of food, out of water, out of medicine. Humanitarian aid has to be brought in just for the poorest areas of that country, as hundreds of thousands and millions of refugees are pouring out of Ukraine, and the pedo Joe regime is eager to take them all in, even as we here in America are starting to suffer and struggle to put food on the table. Not to mention, with our border being wide open and over 2 million unvetted, very likely terrorist, welfare mooching scumbags coming in. So, let's see, what do we have now? As gas prices surge, fertilizer is shrinking. That has sent wheat, corn, vegetable oil, soybean through the roof. Okay, Macron says that there's now a worldwide food crisis. Quote, I want to put in place a food voucher system to help the most modest households and the middle class facing these additional costs, Macron told France Bleu Radio the other day. Since wheat supplies and Russia from Ukraine are now cut off from the rest of the world, these two countries are considered a breadbasket for certain food commodities. Global wheat prices have soared by intent. Reports indicate that between Ukraine and Russia, they export 30% of the world's wheat. Russia has 58% of the world's fertilizer. But the U.S. has been cut off from both of those because of the sanctions that they put against Russia, which were to deter Russia before they weren't a deterrent. U.S. food prices rose 1% in February, the largest monthly increase since April 2020. Over the past 12 months, overall, U.S. food prices increased 7.9%, the biggest jump since July 1981. If Europe adopts a full embargo on diesel, the entire world could be plunged into an extreme oil supply shortage. Because the OPEC nations, no, they're not going to begin ramping up production. They're hesitant to do anything because they have us right where they want us. So, I was in my local Aldi's a couple days ago, and there are several shelves that are empty, the entire row. And the employees there tell you, we're just not getting the deliveries that we have called for. It's going to get much, much, much worse. We are likely not going to see a recession. It's going to be a depression that makes 1929 look like a cakewalk. You really need to get seeds to be ready to plant your own garden. You've got to raise your own food. If you have a place to get a cow, some pigs, some rabbits, chickens, something. Do everything you can. Long-term food storage. I know I seem to be harping on this, but since I got a partner long-term food storage company, I'm pushing this because you all need to get some. You can go on there and do a calculation for how much you might need depending on how many people you think you're going to have to feed. But you need to tell people that are probably going to show up at your house, they need to start taking care of themselves and bringing some supply up to your house if that's where they're going to be. Now, if you are in a town or city, you need to realize that as these shortages really kick in mid to late summer, early to mid fall, people all around you in those towns, villages, or cities, when they start running out of food, they're going to start showing up. And they're not going to be happy, and they will not be the same neighbors you knew a couple weeks ago. When people are watching their children starve to death, something happens. But you need to start preparing. This isn't going to be 3 or 6 months that food prices are high. We are coming into summer and nothing's being planted. That was going to be the food for the following summer. The food supplies that were stored up last year have already been virtually decimated because there were no foods planted last year or anything to take their place. I cannot stress enough. StorageChef.com, SFP15 for your 15% discount. Maybe that's something that you buy, and when people show up begging for food, you can give them some of that. Buy an extra can or two of pork and beans, soup, an extra 1 pound bag of rice. Start setting up a small tote somewhere that when people show up, you give them something. Buy a 20-pound bag of rice and divide it up into large 1-quart sandwich bags and put them in the tote. Give them that with a can of beans. Maybe buy a case of bottled water. Give them a cup. You just remember, when you start giving them stuff, they're going to show up again and again and again. We cannot take care of everybody. That is why people need places where they're going to go that are not in a town, a city, a village. Unless your whole street's doing what you're doing, and you know they're not. You don't have to get your food directly from the company that sponsors me. You get it wherever you want. But you're going to find the discount that you're getting through me is better than all the rest. 15% is more than all the other companies out there. But do your research, make a choice. But if you decide, StorageChef.com, SFP15. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and notification bell. But for now, JT, signing off.